this is like a perennial conversation. Like it literally goes on my surveys periodically because some CEO is like, how bad is the gossip here?
Yes. And which our response is usually gossip is good. Healthy sign.
Yeah, there are basically three main reasons why we're prone to gossip. And the main one of them is information sharing, right? Like you don't know what's going on and you're trying to figure it out. And so you're gossiping, trying to get that information.
Yeah.
And then the second is making a connection, social bonding. Sometimes we gossip just so that way it's an opportunity to sort of do that sharing.
Sure.
They've actually studied this. Gossiping does raise oxytocin levels.
The trust hormone.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting.
And then the third reason is for moral reasons. It's sort of like the moral regulation of the group. And so to some degree, you do a little bit of gossiping to sort of signal your own values, the values of the group to newcomers.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's also to sort of demonstrate the values that are unacceptable. So we have been in a hospital where well, let's just say a doctor and a nurse were too friendly and they were both married. And that was the first thing I was told in a survey debrief. And it's because that was just so against their values.
Yeah.
And it was a group of people who felt this way. It wasn't one person. And so, they were gossiping because they told me about this thing that was happening between these two people that I really did not need to know.
Yeah, it's a signal, sending a signal sometimes.
But but basically they're saying this is unacceptable behavior for here. We don't want that.
Yeah.
And so those are the three reasons why we tend to gossip.
Yeah.
And so from an individual level, gossip can actually be a positive.
And to the organization.
And from an organizational level, it's really only when you're the focus of the gossip that it becomes dicey as to whether or not it's negative or not.
I think a lot of managers, in addition to that, also feel like gossip is negative when the gossip either trumps their ability to tell them.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. So
we're doing information sharing.
Right.
And then we have a group of managers who are like, we're telling them what is going on and they don't believe us because they heard X from some bonehead who's not in the meetings.
Well, the grapevine, the gossip grapevine doesn't have policies and procedures. And so, people are gossiping about things they have their eye on, things they're worried about, promotions, firings, punishments, etc.
Well, and the social comparison component, they're gossiping because so-and-so gets all this time off, but management, this is a different example. This is one of the reasons why it's hard to wrangle. Management is blocked legally and procedurally from telling you why this person is getting what they're getting.
Yeah, and the process has to play out. And so grapevine isn't waiting. Something bad happens, the grapevine goes into action, chattering about it, and the managers are, then people start coming to their managers, what's going on here? And, I don't know. It's, it's under internal review. I mean, the main point of this episode is, and why it's interesting, is we all the time get managers who view gossip as negative because it's in their mind making their job harder. And it actually is in some cases. The gossip's getting the jump on them. There's things that are happening in the organization that the grapevine is fielding with less precision and more inaccuracies faster than they can, and they don't like that. It's throwing off questions to them that they can't answer, and managers don't like that. And it's throwing off also a lot of, red herrings, a lot of goat trails that dilute the focus of what the manager would like it to be. But in the science and also in your work in identifying and measuring organizations, and more generally when we stop and think about it, gossip has the positive functions that you identified. It's fast relay of information, helps with the norms, and also enables people to actually feel socially connected to the group. And so in terms of a healthy organization, gossip is a good sign. the sign that people are talking and chattering and trying to make sense of what's going on in the organization. But most managers don't like it. Most managers want to know, how do I make it go away? In fact, people, as you mentioned, come up to you and ask in your survey, how do I reduce this?
This is how I would handle it. First of all, you got to start figuring out exactly what the purpose is for the gossip. Like, is it just social bonding, or is it information sharing, or is it that they're trying to impose sort of limits on behaviors based on values? And you can figure that out. If you hear enough of the gossip, you can get the gist of it, why it's happening. And, if it's information sharing, then the stuff that you can communicate, maybe you need to actually examine whether or not you're doing a very good job communicating it. And the stuff that you can't communicate, you're focusing on the policies more than the actual specific incident, so they understand the process. And then for the stuff that's social bonding, you can have social bonding that's positive, right? That people are using gossip in a positive way, a constructive way.
Yeah. Yeah, I got an example of that.
Okay, give us an example of that.
The CEO of his company blew up his marriage and then got into a relationship with somebody from China who was 20 years younger than him, and then took the company to China to try to do business in China, and would bring his, mistress or whatever, girlfriend, to the business meetings. And it was scandalous in the whole company because, basically it was a norm violation. Like, we're not a company where the CEO is off carrying on in a foreign country with his mistress, having just blown up his marriage, with this mistress. And now this unqualified person is in these multi-million-dollar business meetings. And so it ricocheted throughout the company. And you can imagine, if you're a senior manager or the CEO, you would hate all that gossip, but it's serving a function. It's actually noise from the company saying,
come back into alignment.
Yeah, there is a violation here. This isn't how we do things. And people are chattering to not only express, their angst and discomfort, but this term that we talk about sometimes, sense making. You're trying to make sense of what's happening. What kind of company do we actually have? I thought we were better than this
I thought we were family oriented.
Right. And, so I'm talking to this person next to me, and then I want to go and I ask my manager about it, and I want to know what my manager thinks. And that's a lot of times, gossip is just is a negative or pejorative label for people talking, or employees talking, staff talking.
There's an element of like losing control, right? Like if you lose control over the information, there's a sense that as a manager, you've lost control. And like, we often hear this about like payroll, like all these companies who are like, oh, no employees should be talking about what they make. And to which I'm like, they should definitely be talking about what they're making, because you should have a pay scale that's fair. Like that should be transparent.
Yeah.
And so that's just an example.
Yeah,
they don't like that. Yeah. They don't like that level of gossip.
And it's insane for anybody. If you're a manager listening to this and you think your people aren't going to talk about pay and punishment and promotion, then the most important thing you can take from this podcast is quit thinking like that. That's nuts.
Right.
Of course, people think about that.
Right. There's in that information sharing, it's a huge bucket, but part of that information sharing lives social comparison.
Right.
So you're gathering the information of how other people are doing and what they're getting away with to assess where you are.
Yeah.
People need that. People generally need to know how they're sort of ranking up against another human being, and you're not gonna get rid of that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that, and it's when people are out and people get in trouble. And I understand that in many cases you can't go into the specifics, but you tell people like, look, she's out because of health reasons. And that, for most people, that's a good managerial response.